Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Entangled in Crisis, Human-Animal Relations in Times of Conflict and Upheaval. On behalf of the Community for Human-Animal Studies Israel, and together with my co-chair Anat Ben-Yonatan, I would like to thank you for joining us. We meet at a moment when crisis is not a distant condition we study, but something we inhabit. In our area, as well as in many others around the world, the language of emergency and survival shapes public life, often leaving little room for reflection. It is difficult, even uncomfortable, to pause and think when violence feels near and when suffering is unevenly distributed and politically charged. Yet this is also when thinking becomes most necessary. Our fields remind us that crisis never affects humans alone. Animals, whether as companions, symbols, refugees, workers, or witnesses, are bound to our histories of conflict and displacement. They are drawn into our wars, our borders, our economies, our moral imaginations. To speak of human-animal relations in times like these is not to look away from human pain. It is to recognize that violence and vulnerability cross species lines, and that understanding this entanglement might help us to see our own actions more clearly. Human and animal studies invite us to resist single stories, to notice what is obscured when fear demands certainty, and to listen across boundaries. We're not here to flatten difference or to equate experiences, but to remain attentive to the complex realities that shape all lives caught in crisis. Attention itself, slow, detailed, and relational, is a form of responsibility. Yet complexity cannot mean moral hesitation. We must stand firmly against all forms of violence that harm innocent people, devastate the environment, and destroy the lives of other living beings. Over the day, we will hear from people who study and work in very different contexts. What connects these contributions is a shared attempt to think amid crisis, to ask how humans and other animals endure, adapt, and sometimes resist together. Thank you for being here, for engaging with care, and for helping us keep open a space for thoughtful, critical conversation at a time when it is often the first thing to disappear. A few words about today's program. We begin with Wounded Ecologies, Trauma, Memory, and the Ethics of Care, a panel that explores how animals, landscapes, and people absorb the marks of violence and continue to enact forms of care and meaning in its aftermath. The keynote, Starvation and Displacement, Sulala Animal Rescue in Gaza, features Zaid Al-Er, founder and director of Sulala Animal Rescue, and filmmaker Bert Anderson Smith. Their conversation brings us into one of the most urgent and difficult contexts of our time, raising questions about the limits and possibilities of care amid violence and extreme deprivation. Finally, Emerging Futures, Agency, Resistance, and Interspecies Possibilities turns to acts of resilience and imagination, how new forms of relation and agency emerge even during destruction, and what these might tell us about the possibility of repair. Taken together, the panels and keynote trace a movement from wounding to a reimagining, asking how crises transform both the conditions of life and the ethical horizons through which we understand it.